Now, the Three Martini Lunch with Greg Corombos and Jim Garrity.
And welcome to Wednesday. I am Rich McFadden, in for Greg Corombos here on the Three Martini Lunch, along, as always, with Jim Garrity from the National Review, taking you up to Inauguration Day. And it never slows down, Jim. It always seems like something's jumping up into the frying pan for us to chat about.
And good, because otherwise we would just kind of stand here in awkward silence. It wouldn't be much of a podcast.
Yeah, we would figure something. We'd be playing Staying Alive or some other fun music.
Go.
There it is. All right, so let's jump right into today's good martini. And today is truly a good martini in that the abortion rate looks like it's taking a big tumble on the downslide here.
Yeah, this was over at CNN, and I figured this would be really big news, more discussion about that. I guess there's so much going on with the inauguration and transition, it's kind of gotten lost in the shuffle. This is not a small drop, and it's been a steady drop. It says this is the lowest level since Roe versus Wade legalized the procedure. The rate is down to 14.6 abortions per 1,000 women of childbearing age, which, by the way, they define from 15 to 44. You want to get perspective of what it used to be. Back in the early 80s, it was above 28. Then in the 90s, it got into kind of the low 20s. And it looks like, strangely enough, ironically, right around the beginning of the Obama era, it has steadily dropped. And so I would say this is, I applaud you, Mr. President. This is the greatest social development during your presidency. I'm not so sure that he would do that. But if you want to say, oh, okay,
sure,
that's just the rate per 1,000 women. Well, by sheer numbers, we're under 1 million for the first time since the mid-'70s. The peak was more than 1.6 million in 1990. Now, there are people who gathered this data have a couple of reasons for it. They credit increased contraceptive use. They also say there are restrictions on several states on how you can access abortion. But what I found fascinating, Rich, and I don't think this necessarily helps either side of the debate that much, just kind of a curious thing, there is no correlation between the number of clinics and abortion rates, which I guess might hurt the pro-choice argument. Say, oh, if you put that kind of restriction on, it'll close down a clinic and that'll deny access. Well, the number of clinics in the Midwest declined 22% during the study period, and the abortion rate in that region went down 9%. So you might say, oh, okay, that fewer places that perform abortions, fewer abortions going on. But in the Northeast, the number of clinics increased by 14%. And there, the abortion rate declined by 11% between 2011 and 2014. So more places doing abortions, but fewer abortions being performed. I'll let the listeners kind of debate all that stuff. But if you're an opponent of abortion, or at the very least you find completely unrestricted abortion banned a morally troubling, and if not something you want to completely ban, then something that bothers you, that strikes you as either murder or uncomfortably close to murder, this is a good thing. And arguably, I think, one of the most important social developments in the United States in the past decade.
So how does the left respond to this, do you think? I mean, this is just coming out. What do you think the response is going to be here?
Well, the interesting thing is that for a long time, a lot of Democrats subscribed to the Bill Clinton rhetoric of abortion to be safe, legal, and rare. Now, if you acknowledge the rare, you're kind of saying, well, I don't really think this is a good thing, but I don't want back alley abortions, coat hangers, yada, yada, yada.
Right.
For the last couple of years, that had been this, no, I'm proud of my abortion, right? Shout your abortion, sing your abortion. Not merely this is a necessary evil or something that we feel is, there was no sense of moral complication there. There was a sense of, no, this is a good thing, and if you oppose it, you're a bad person. I think that argument is failing. I think there are, even if the country is not, making air quotes, pro-life, even if the country is not broadly anti-abortion, I've always thought there was this big middle ground of people who, well, maybe they're okay in the first trimester or something, but partial birth abortion really bothered them. Late-term abortion, the idea of taxpayer funding for abortion always bothered them. And I think the momentum is starting to shift on this. A lot of people say this is a reflection of the new ways you can see the development of the fetus. It looks more human. It looks more like a baby, and people don't like the idea of just terminating that. A lot of people don't object to my use of the term "it," by the way, but you talk about this topic, you step on landmines any way you do it. Either way, I think it's safe to say the decline at this point now, a dramatic decline in the abortion rate is a good thing for the country.
My Hispanic mother-in-law, two-time Obama voting Democrat, could not vote for Hillary Clinton because of her late-term abortion and being a Catholic, because of her late abortion stance, and just said, "There's no way I can vote for that." So she was fine with it before with Obama, and where it was just like, okay, pro-choice, blah blah blah. But once it got to that late-term abortion, she wanted nothing to do with it, and a lot of her friends were the same way. And I think that had a big impact in this election with the Hispanic community.
That is an intriguing. Now, obviously, always be careful discussing topics of abortion, and always be careful arguing with your mother-in-law, Rich. Always want to remain.
I know better than to do that. Come on now.
That is kind of a really interesting measuring stick. That kind of seemed to trip her in ways that Obama did not.
Right, exactly. All right, well, abortion takes us into our bad Martini in that what was it, P.J. O'Rourke said, if I would believe in abortions, that they could be retroactive. And I'm right with him if it could be for Chelsea Bradley Manning, who got out or got off the hook this week thanks to President Obama.
Yeah, this is one of those developments where it's generally bad for the country. The irony and the blatant hypocrisy of Obama and the Democrats might make this almost perversely enjoyable. Because remember, the message since Election Day has been that WikiLeaks is the most dangerous and reckless and menacing group that has attacked our democracy. Julian Assange is back to being public enemy number one, which I would argue he always should have been. I'm still mad about exposing the people who've been helping U.S. troops in Afghanistan. People kept saying, "Oh, they didn't endanger anyone." Oh, heck yeah, they did. The coverage from back then says the Taliban is hunting these people. And somebody pointed out, well, there was no, according to, back in 2010, they hadn't found any informants who'd been killed by the Taliban. What do you think? The Taliban stopped looking? You think these people can go on and live normal lives? They have to be in the Afghan equivalent of witness protection, right? Your name is out there as a person who has helped the U.S. and the Taliban is going to try to kill you over that. So anyway, I've never liked Assange. I've never liked Manning. And for that matter, I don't like Edward Snowden. I don't like this idea that we like these people if we like them, if they help our partisan side, but we don't like them if they hurt the other partisan side. I don't think it should be this conditional. And so the idea of Obama suddenly finding Manning this hasn't she suffered enough? Well, look, I'm sorry that she has this issue of gender identity. It sounds like she has really serious psychological problems, but that doesn't change what she did. That doesn't mean the consequences go away, right? And so it's one of those things where, the argument here is that, well, this person has already served 6 years of a sentence. Okay, but the sentence that came down from the court was 35 years. Right. And this was not one or two little items. This was 850,000 documents. This was the biggest leak in history. If you get out of jail after 6 years for the biggest leak in history, every disgruntled employee in the intelligence community is going to do the same thing.
What about the hypocrisy, though, of just the Russians hacking our election, and now they're all of a sudden okay with letting this guy out who basically helped the Russians get information? Yeah,
there's the argument, by the way, has been a couple of days ago, Assange said that he would return for trial if Obama pardoned or commuted the sentence of Manning. Well, step one has happened. I'm going to go out on a crazy limb here, Rich. Yeah. I think Assange is going to break his word.
Yeah, you think?
Call me crazy.
Yeah.
I suppose there is a small chance that, yes, Assange really will return to face trial. Both for the rape allegations and for various other alleged crimes. I don't think he's going to do that. I don't think he's a trustworthy guy. And if he's not a direct Russian agent, he is someone that the Russians have found very convenient to work with. And or at least just say the source of his leaks seem to be very suspicious. And if you look at Assange's rhetoric, it more or less lines up with what the Kremlin would want somebody to say. So this is one of the reasons I don't like trusting any of these people. And now, of course, Manning has to be celebrated as a hero, yada, yada, yada. And
those of us who watch The Blacklist, have you ever seen the show The Blacklist?
Yes.
Okay. In the most recent episode, Red Redding, the undercover guy there, he's got something on the incoming president and holds it over his head to get him to drop all charges and let the female lead go. And the whole country is in shock when they do it. As why could you let this person go? How can you let her off? And basically, this to me, why would Obama do this? What in the world could he be thinking? Somebody is just got a favor.
Well, the justification from the administration was, well, there are a lot, 35 years was a long time for leaks. Other leaks have gotten less time. Now, to me, that doesn't really point to, like I want to prosecute every leaker. Anytime you leak something that endangers somebody's life, I want the book thrown at this person. And that apparently is, apparently I'm some sort of crazy radical.
Not to mention when you do treason to do it.
Right? Yeah. And then the second thing, a lot of people, more than one Obama administration official said, well, Assange was appearing on Hannity. So I guess the idea is to expose the hypocrisy of the right on their one-time denunciation of Julian Assange. And now at least some folks like Sarah Palin and Sean Hannity are offering lots of kudos and kumbayas to Julian Assange. Well, they're hypocrites, but I don't think the Obama administration then becomes a giant hypocrite. When you say, treat WikiLeaks as this giant threat one day and then release one of their most famous leakers of all time the next day. I don't get it. I don't understand it, other than it's kind of a middle finger to the critics. Yeah. And I just find this it's what we've come to expect from Obama, but it's disappointing. Obama's going to Obama all the way to the last day.
Exactly. All right. Well, we'll see how this one plays out because it's certainly going to be interesting to follow. All right. On to our last and crazy martini of the day. One of my favorite things to just throw in people's faces nowadays is that YouTube clip where Mitt Romney tells President or then Senator Obama how dangerous Russia is, and Senator Obama laughs at him and says, "What do you think, this is the Cold War? Get out of the 80s." Well, look at where we are now. And all of a sudden, here comes Joe Biden playing the part of Mitt Romney.
Yeah. So here is Vice President Biden at the World Economic Forum, the Davos gathering in Switzerland, the world's movers and shakers, CEOs, national leaders, and kind of the concentrated global elites in one place. And what is the message? That Russia is the biggest threat to the international liberal order, and Washington must work with Europe to stand up to Vladimir Putin. It sounds an awful lot like saying that Russia is the America's preeminent, the number one geopolitical foe, which is something that Obama scoffed at. And it's one of those things where, look, if Democrats really believe this, if they really buy onto this, then fine, welcome. To quote John McClane in Die Hard, welcome to the party, pal. Some of us have really not liked Vladimir Putin for a long time. I can't help but notice, though, that besides the scoffing that Mitt Romney had a Cold War mentality back then, besides the reset button back in 2009, besides the I'll have more flexibility after the election.
Right.
To Vladimir.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Obama said to Medvedev. Like, there's been a long time. People have been calling on the Obama administration to take a tougher line on Russia for a long time. And all these Democrats who are now really up in arms, Rich, I remember the Russian-backed rebels shooting down a Malaysian airliner a couple years ago. I don't remember the world being all that bothered by that. They took over Crimea. World kind of shrugged, issued a couple of sanctions. All kinds of agitation and more, invading our airspace. Russia's been pushing our buttons for a long time. And very few people in the Democratic Party cared until it hit Podesta, until it hit the DNC, until it threatened their partisan interests instead of the national interests. So, gee, Joe Biden, I'm really glad you're here. I hope you guys stick with this, and I hope it doesn't because at some point, by the way, I'm not really enamored with Republicans who are feeling warm and fuzzy towards Putin or Russia, because 99 times out of 100, the party that's going, unless we're in this giant total sea change in our politics, 99 times out of 100, the party that's going to be more hostile to Russian aggression is going to be the Republican Party. This was that 1 in 100 circumstance in which the Republican nominee was more warm and fuzzy towards Russia than the Democrats were. Now, because so here's if Democrats are on board with this, fine. But my suspicion is within a year or two, the circumstances will change, and the Democrats will, denounce Republicans as crazed warmongers and nationalists and all that kind of stuff.
All Biden cares
being
about right
excessively
now
hostile to the Kremlin.
He's got his nice little pretty Medal of Honor hanging around his neck, and he can ride off into the sunset and be happy about it. So, all right. Well, we'll see how this one plays out too. That one probably angers me more than anything. Whenever I see this kind of just hypocrisy in Washington, it just drives me nuts. So I'll be curious to see how that plays out. Until then, tomorrow, Greg Columbus will be back with you and Jim Garrity. I am Rich McFadden for today's 3 Martini Lunch. Thanks, Jim.